Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Wednesday, August 12th, 2015. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, signs of the financial apocalypse are here as global stocks plummet after the currency in China declines for the second day in a row, sending fear through investors and a tidal wave of deflation.
The economy is in a far worse position than it was just prior to the last major financial crisis.
Then, the EPA has sovereign immunity, and they won't face fines or penalties for polluting rivers in Colorado because the government doesn't fine itself. And in a surprise move, Hillary Clinton has finally agreed to turn over her private email server to the Justice Department. Will indictments follow? You'll find out up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
We, the people, will tell our senators and congressmen how to vote.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen.
For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox Special at InfoWarsLife.com.
Now, coming up, we have Gerald Celente, who is going to talk about what's behind all of these movements that we've seen in Chinese currency, where that is all going to lead. Also on the show, we're going to be talking to Craig Richardson of Energy and Environmental Legal. He's going to be looking at the massive power grab of the EPA going after all water, all air, all part of Obama's war on coal and his executive order takeover of our economy. But before we do, let's take a quick look at what's going on in the economic news. Of course, we've had 2 days of decline based on the Chinese reevaluation of their currency. The Wall Street Journal points out cheaper Chinese currency has a global impact. They say Beijing has signaled with its currency devaluation that the domestic economic slowdown it has failed to reverse is no longer a problem. Confined within China's borders, it's now the world's problems too. They point out that Chinese officials have tried in vain to stimulate the economy. They've cut interest rates 4 times in the past year. They've increased the amount of money that banks can lend out, and they've pumped funds into the stock market. And of course, they've also been caught with massive leveraging. That was one of the things that sent shockwaves to everyone about a month and a half ago. If you remember, the massive leverage of the Chinese stock market makes them vulnerable to the same kinds of movements and problems that caused the Great Depression in the 1920s. Now, moving on, they say global stock markets have plunged on Chinese currency decline. They say global stocks sold off sharply Wednesday, that's today, after China's currency declined for a second day in a row, sending fear through investors. Currencies and commodities were also under pressure after China's central bank allowed the yuan to drop against the U.S. dollar, sparking its largest 2-day decline in decades. U.S. stock markets fell triple digits, also for a second day in a row. By mid-morning, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 240 points. In major markets across Asia and Europe also recorded losses between 1% and 3%. They say this move comes after the People's Bank of China shocked the markets by changing the way the yuan's daily trading band is calculated. Many see it as a way to boost exports and provide a lift to the cooling economy. And of course, that's precisely what it is. It is part of the China price. We're going to talk about that. But first, one of the stocks that declined, and one of the important stocks of the Dow Jones average, is Apple Computer. They say they suffered a 5% drop in their share price. The currency devaluation is likely to increase import costs of devices for Apple. Of course, it's going to do that to a lot of companies because that's precisely what it was calculated to do. It's calculated to make Chinese exports cheaper compared to other people and make it more difficult for the Chinese to import things to buy products from other countries. So Apple is one stock that is going to decline. They fell 5% just on this initial basis. And that brings us to the Chinese price, the China price. They've been talking about this for over 10 years. Listen to some of the aspects of what makes China such a powerful economic powerhouse. It's not just because they do such a great job. No, there's a little bit of trickery involved. First of all, there's low wages. We all know about the Chinese low wages. Then there's also piracy and counterfeiting, a big part of the China price. Minimal worker health and safety regulations, lax environmental regulations and enforcement. So they don't care about the health of the workers, the health of the environment. And then, of course, there's subsidies for those who are exporting. And that's essentially what the currency is. But the currency is a separate part of the China price because it has always been a big part of China's battle plans against other world economies. They say a chronically undervalued currency. And of course, just recently, the IMF had said that China's currency was not grossly undervalued. So they made sure that it was again, because that's part of their competitive price. It isn't just that they're doing things more efficiently, that they're working harder. They're basically resorting to things like piracy and currency manipulation. Now, The Guardian is concerned that this may turn into a tidal wave of deflation. They say, make no mistake, this is the start of something big, something ugly. That's the city economist Albert Edwards. He's also working with the bank Societe Generale. He argues that as well as creating a challenge for China's Asian rivals by making exports more competitive, a cheaper yuan will send a tidal wave of deflation breaking over the world economy. He points out central banks in the US and UK have primed investors for interest rate rises, with the Bank of England pointing to the turn of the year for a move, and Janet Yellen at the Fed saying that they could start a tightening as soon as September. But they're not going to be able to raise interest rates when the Chinese are dropping their currency. That's precisely the problem. And deflation is such a dangerous thing because people begin to put off purchases. And if it gets bad enough, it drives you into a depression and into war. That's one of the things we're going to talk to Gerald Celente about. He has a movement that he's trying to start, Occupy Peace. So we'll be talking to him as part of that interview coming up. And finally, what they said is what China's surprise currency devaluation means for its economy and the world. This is the Washington Post. They say the currency's value was the most dramatic one-day change in 2 decades, as we mentioned earlier. Political leaders throughout the U.S. and Europe and elsewhere have complained that China leaves its currency at a low value to boost its domestic industries. And we just pointed that out. But here's what else they have to say. They say it is sure to ignite a debate over whether the country is giving an unfair advantage to its businesses. Will this be used as leverage to try to ram through the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Transatlantic Partnership, TPP, TTIP? They have already gotten the Trade Promotion Authority that will make it very easy for them to pass this through. And one of the reasons that they have come up with these free trade treaties that they state is because they want to use it as a way to fight China's control, China's manipulation. Of course, we understand, because we've been watching this, that it is about far more than free trade. And it is not about going after China. We know because Senator Sessions has told us that this is going to create a transnational governing committee that will be able to add any country that they wish at any time and change the rules of engagement at any time. So that is something that bears watching. Will this be used as a way to grease the skids towards TPP, to grease the skids towards taking away more of our sovereignty? Now, we've had a lot of people, a lot of economists, Harry Dent, we've had Peter Schiff, we've had Gerald Celente, and of course he's coming up in just a moment, all warning about massive changes coming up economically this fall. Where does this all lead? Well, Leanne McAdoo has a breakdown of what people have been predicting as far as an economic apocalypse.
Well, that's right, David. Economists have been warning for some time that something big is about to happen. And here are just a few signs that the day of reckoning is upon us. Obviously, the devaluation of the yuan on Tuesday took virtually the entire planet by surprise. But that's not all. We're also seeing what's called a death cross. That's a very troubling sign. It means the Dow has moved below the 200-day moving average for the first time in the last 4 years. Oil is at a 6-year low, but OPEC keeps pumping it out, which means oil prices have fallen to $43.08 a barrel, and they're predicting that that could plunge even further into the 30s. Some recently released numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that in 1 out of every 5 American families, nobody has a job. So they're calling the unemployment rate sitting at 5.5%. But how is that possible when everyone is unemployed in 20% of the households? It doesn't make any sense there. So obviously household income is falling, which means nobody's spending any money. So we're starting to see a commercial bubble about to burst. Stores are closing, retail jobs are vanishing, and they're calling this the retail apocalypse. In fact, we're seeing a drop in wholesale sales and factory orders in the U.S. Credit requests are being denied in record numbers. U.S. export growth has actually gone negative for the first time since the last recession. The rate of home ownership in the United States has just hit a brand new 25-year low, which means we are a nation of renters, and that's not going to be changing anytime soon, especially with the pending student loan bubble that is clearly bursting. According to Bloomberg, only 37% of all student loan borrowers are actually up to date on their payments and reducing their balances. So, also we got the bond market booming, subprime lending is making a comeback. So all of these things are just signs that something big is about to happen. Don't forget, it's a Shemitah year as well. We've gone in depth with what that means. So these are cycles. Actually 7-year cycles that we're seeing here. And people are always wanting to believe that somehow things are going to be different this time. But frankly, the only thing that's different this time around is that the economy is in a far worse position than it was just prior to the last major financial crisis.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. For a limited time, get 25% off on this introductory offer. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. ancientdefense.com.